Welcome to The Last Japanese Tourist, or if you'd rather a more boring title, ironically offering the only respite from the big concrete city. The cherry blossom parks scattered throughout Tokyo are a sight to behold. When I entered Yoyogi Park, I was surprised to find masses of people lounging, socializing, and most of all drinking beneath the white blossoms. Apparently, it's a long-standing tradition to get absolutely wasted, and it's pretty sick and extremely warranted. Once they've bloomed, the blossoms usually only stick around for about a week or so. I was lucky to catch them in the time frame of my trip. Because of their fleeting and legendary beauty, even the Japanese people, who are known to be some of the busiest in the world, have to take a second to relax and soak it in.
The perfect blossom is a rare thing. You could spend your life looking for one, and it would not be a wasted life.
In a mall next to my hotel, me and my mom discovered a traveling museum about the life of Oda Urokusai, a samurai and tea master who lived in the 1500s. Urokusai was considered traitorous and a failure in his time, but he lived in such a way simply to survive in feudal Japan, where death and change were ever present. Despite his faults, he was a major contributor to the Japanese tradition of tea ceremony. In those days, tea ceremonies were a smaller part of Japanese culture, but through courteous patrons and practitioners like him, it was revitalized, and that's a big reason why matcha is so popular today. Seriously, it's all over Japan. Almost the polar opposite of Tokyo, with the exception of the crowd still being extremely large. Kyoto is more of a sprawling city, in tune with its surrounding beauty, nature, and its historical background. Even the buildings have to adhere to a strict color code to preserve the old feel. The city is home to the geishas, or Japanese female performing artists, trained in traditional Japanese performing art styles, such as dance, music, and singing. Unfortunately, today they are commonly misunderstood around the world, taken even for prostitutes, which is far from the truth. There are only about 200 geishas in the world now, as it is a dying trade, and they all live in Gion, a district in Kyoto, which they've occupied for hundreds of years. Me and my parents were fortunate enough to get tickets to one of the most famous spring geisha shows, the Miyako Odori. It was a masterful performance, including a number of short plays and dances, accompanied by the twang of the shamisen, a traditional stringed instrument, and the occasional dramatic grunt from some unknown man. Geishas are extremely dedicated artisans, beginning training at only 15 years of age, and committing their lives to the difficult and demanding craft. It's tragic they don't have the positive recognition they deserve. There are hundreds of temples around Kyoto, so many that I even stumbled upon one situated right in the middle of a shopping district. But the most incredible one I visited was called Sanjusen Jendo. It hosts one of Japan's national treasures, 1,001 statues of Kannon, the goddess of mercy, which were commissioned and created all the way back in 1164. What's crazy is that every single statue was purposefully created completely unique to each other. This army, along with a host of divine guardians, surround and protect a massive statue of the Buddha. The smoke of earthy incense indefinitely hangs in the air, and looking down the seemingly infinite hall of deities is a surreal experience, to say the least. I also took part in a matcha ceremony with a tea master. The main equipment included the tea whisk, tea container for the powdered green tea scoop, tea bowl, sweets container or plate, and the kettle and brazier. The first thing that we learned was that the tea master was not allowed to make eye contact with us, per tradition. She taught us how to put 2 scoops of matcha in water and whisk until the matcha frothed, then allowed us to try it ourselves. Custom is to pick the bowl up with one's dominant hand, turn it clockwise 3 times to admire the craftsmanship of the matcha bowl, then drink the matcha in 3 or 5 sips. On the last sip, one must make a subtle slurping sound to signal they're finished. A fun closing story is The Legend of Masakado, which I learned from my tour guide Makun. Japan is rich with supernatural stories, and this is one of the most famous. Masakado's grave was only a bridge away from where we sat, Makun eerily told us. He was a lord who became too ambitious for his own good, despite his well-known morality. The emperor arranged for Masakado to be ambushed by a force that far outnumbered him and included his own allies. He was swiftly defeated, beheaded, and his head displayed as a warning to other rebels. The emperor even forbade anyone to give him a Buddhist burial or memorial, leaving his spirit to wander the earth without hope of redemption. But soon, the severed head came to life and flew off in search of its body, spreading vicious curses as it did so. Masakado's head never found its body, and eventually fell in Kyoto, where it was buried and enshrined. Since then, Taira no Masakado has been locked in a cycle. Every few hundred years his name is disrespected, or his shrine is destroyed, and the people of Japan are subjected to misfortune until reparations are made to his vengeful spirit.